Tell me what you see in the industries that you work with as strategies to
Yeah.
sort of manage that.
Well, couple things. I think you allude to this in the 10% that you and your controller put into a reserve account. I think having a reserve is always going to help you infinitely during this time. Also, when you do have a lot of cash coming in, that's a great, like in the busy months, it's a great time to start looking at a line of credit when you don't really need it.
Absolutely.
Um, and then lastly, you had mentioned receivables. Really, ultimately in your business, you definitely don't, you want to try to reduce as many of the receivables as you have so that you can have cash. But if you are in a business where receivables are, that's the common practice and you have
Right.
to abide by it, it's how people do business. You want to see if you can insure your receivables, because nothing is worse than whenever receivable is 180 days when it was supposed to be 90 days, right? And
Mm.
you're sitting there in July and you're like, we need to get this money now, and you can't actually get it. You can't control it. So there's a several different insurance companies that do receivables. A little bit about it. The one that I'm familiar with is from Allianz. I think you end up paying like, if you're doing less than 10 million in revenue, you're going to end up paying something like 10,000 a year to insure your receivables. But what that does is it'll guarantee up to 90% of the receivable amount. What's great with that is that you can use that to improve your line of credit with the bank because
Mm.
you have insurance up to
There's
90%.
protection. Yeah.
If they've, as soon as they've gone past the time, say it was 90 days as with the payment terms, as soon as they've got that, you can submit the claim and immediately the insurance will provide you with 90%. Now, if the insurance, that what they go and do is they try to go and collect the other, all the money from the company. And if they end up collecting 100%, they give you 100%. They give you the other 10%. So it's really a win-win, and that can really help with instances of like, I think that the worst thing about a slowdown is whenever you're relying on something and then it doesn't come to fruition.
Yes,
And that
for
can be
sure.
with, you think you won the job and then you don't win the job. But a big one is we're going to collect, but then you don't collect. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. Also get the credit line to help with that. Um, Now, as you meant, going back to the 10% that you mentioned, really, when you're in the slowdown, you need to be calculating your expenses and your needs when it's busy, and really for when you're selling for what's busy, right? So we know that it's going to be extremely busy in January, February, March, and we're going to be selling all of that work in, September and October. Well, we need to be pricing for the slowdown. And that's where people get it wrong, is they're pricing to win the job, which is great. Like, you should be winning the job, you should be competitive, but you shouldn't be winning jobs at all costs, because maybe that job that you're winning now is going to force you to increase your workforce for those jobs. And then you end up having to pay for the workforce in July and you can't afford them. So
You're
you've
talking
got to
about
be pricing.
your discount your way to victory jobs, right? Like
Yes,
stay away. No,
exactly.
you're. This
So,
is we've had this conversation you and I about we talk about gross margin and and the need and profitability. And if you're in an industry where, let's just say, 2 months a year you're going to experience that slowdown, your pricing is that you have is not just, you know, the cost of goods considerations. It's what does it take to keep your business operating at that high level all year round. You don't, because you know what happens? It's not that you're a lesser company. You say, oh, we'll just cut the costs in those 2 months. It's not that, because it'll take you 2 months or more to recover after that to get back to where you were if you don't have some traditional or some intentional plan of how you address it. So I couldn't agree with you more.
yeah.
It really um, and by the way, since we've done this and we've been able to be disciplined, Khalil, about the 10% savings on what we collect. Um, and again, we have our business model in this industry. We do about 60% of our revenue in the first 6 months, so we're able to
Yeah.
really sock away. But we haven't had to go out on a line of credit in 3 or 4 years because um, we've just changed
And that's
our.
the best time to
Yeah,
get the line of credit.
it, you know what it is. You're right.
That's it. When you don't need it, go get the line of credit. Go start the banking relationships, because
It's
you
true.
won't be able to get the terms you want when you really need it. But
Yeah.
if you have it now, then whenever, things do go south, then you've got something in place. I think a couple of things that I also want to mention with these downturns. This is probably one of the biggest opportunities for improving efficiencies is when things go down. A lot of times we think of, people are working on processes and they're upgrading their facilities and they're, changing things around the shop or whatever it is. Don't do those times when you're at your busiest. You should trust your systems when you're in that, hey, we're overtime right now, right? But you should be making improvements to your processes, to your facilities, to your trucks, to whatever you have
Yeah.
in the slow times.
Yeah.
That's what's going to keep you, I guarantee you there's times where, you say you have summer hours, right? And we're doing 30 hours a week for some of our guys rather than 50 when they're in the busy time. Well, one, how are we going to create this extra cash? And one way to do that is we're doing overtime in the busy periods. How can
We
we
are. And
stop doing overtime
yeah.
so that
Well, and by the way,
we
we're reminding those guys that, well, it's unfair if your salary people don't take a pay cut. How come you're on? Because the hourly people are getting very often, clearly, it's 60 hours a week is the average, in 55 to 60. But because we meet regularly, right? We're constantly saying, are you putting some of that away? Because July's coming, right? We've all experienced, and they're veterans, right? So they understand that. Although it's nice to have a little nudge to remind them, if you literally are living paycheck to paycheck, you're going to feel what hardship feels like come the slow time. So, fortunately, Mike, our core guys in all our cities are very aware of that.
Well, and I think, there's a reason why you're hitting overtime in the busy times. And a lot of that's down to efficiencies. And so now there's some things you just can't predict. And there's, the job just requires 50 hours a week. But if you can create efficiencies in the slow time, that will allow you to operate at 40 hours a week or 45 hours a week and reduce the amount of overtime that you pay, which will then give you more cash to build your reserve for during the slow time. And another thing is, I know that you're paying guys 30 hours a week during the slow time and they're just kind of sitting in the shop. They're not really doing anything. And that's a time where you can have a quarterly rock that, hey, for this summer, our big thing for the shop is, completely renovating how we store things. It's changing the way we do inventory. It's changing the way we, set up this station for rehearsal, whatever it might be. That's really where you're going to have the opportunity to have internal projects that, yes, you're paying these guys, but let's pay them to really create efficiencies in our business and add value so that we can be better when we do get to the busy season.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, it's really great to look at if you're slow in June, July, August, look at what businesses, what industries are busy in June, July, August. You had mentioned schools. Schools take the same approach. They don't do major renovations to a school during the school year. They're going to do it in the summer when all the kids are gone. So schools are a ripe target audience for, hey, can we use our shop guys, or can we use our guys that are out in the field, our delivery guys, for doing stuff at schools in the summer?
Yeah.
Who's hosting events in the summer that are not our typical audience? Well, maybe sororities are hosting events and fraternities. Maybe universities are putting on huge events for recruitment or for, welcoming the new freshman class. Look at what's getting busy during your slow time and see how you can tailor your service to those people. It's a common thing with landscapers or, lawn companies. They're slow in the winter. What gets busy? Christmas lights and snow removal and fall cleanup. And, these are the types of things that they're going to do in their slow time, and they're going to treat it as its own audience. They're going to dedicate a salesperson just to Christmas lights. They're going to dedicate marketing efforts just towards Christmas lights. Same thing should be happening for your company. What is our intentional strategy to stay busy in the slow months? Hey, we are going to hire this salesperson that's only going to be focused on June, July, August, and they get paid a higher commission than what we normally do because that work is that much more valuable to us to to be able to break even in those months rather than be at negative.